Welcome to the 5th episode of this vlog. Had I stayed on track, this would be the 20th episode. But things came up. Finishing my final project for grad school, job hunting, client work and other video-related projects, home remodels as you can see behind me, a couple of trips out of town, both of which I filmed a lot along the way, socializing, spending time with family, getting distracted by social media and current events, taking care of kids, and all the while trying to eat and sleep. And I won't even get into how much I miss good sleep. For example, just today, I laid down for a quick power nap, slept for 3.5 hours, because I've got a 9-month-old that's teething right now and has been up for 2 nights straight. But I said I wasn't going to get into how much I miss sleep. I remember as an undergrad, there were terms where I took 12 credits, 8 credits. There were other terms where I took 16 to 20 credits. The terms that I took 16 to 20 credits and worked a part-time or even a full-time job were the terms that I performed the best. I think it has something to do with just the fact that if you have that kind of pressure and you're forced to stay on top of things, then you're less likely to slip in certain areas. Now, with all this being said, all of the stuff that I've worked on that is not vlog related has in some way served value to the filmmaking process for me. I'll go into a little bit of that later, but I want to use this episode to share a few things that have helped me pull out of the post-grad school rut that I found myself in. Whether it's grad school or whether it's anything else that gets us a bit distracted, it can be really easy for some of us to fall into a bit of a lull. And there's a few things that I've done over the last few months to help me pull out of that lull. And I'm reminded of an incident that happened when I was in Asia with my family. We were traveling for about 3 months. I've got tons of footage and video ideas that I'm gonna pull from that trip. But along the way, my daughter, who's almost 3 at the time, got very sick. She ended up in a hospital. She's gonna be sick for a while, and that's obviously incredibly heartbreaking because she's not the lively, energetic Avery that we're used to. This has been a long week. I'm getting agitated. Some of the people in this hospital have felt my agitation. This caused a great deal of anxiety for me. And that during the time that she was in the hospital, as well as the weeks after, I had a very hard time being motivated, being inspired. I think it just kind of took it out of me. But at some point I had to pull myself out of that rut because I only had a few weeks left there, and there was just an incredible opportunity to shoot footage, to develop stories of the time that I was spending there. And I'm going to show you a deleted clip from a recent video that I produced about the trip that I took there. But I still edited the clip, I still put it in the rough cut, and I still thought it was relevant. And so when I had to make the final decisions to cut some of the things that I liked but didn't necessarily love, this was one of the clips that I decided to cut. So just so you have some backstory.
We were worn out and ready to just come home. Food stopped tasting good, we weren't motivated to explore, let alone film anything. I started becoming easily annoyed, agitated, and impatient. Fortunately, things did start to settle down a bit as everyone was able to rest and recover. I was able to pull out of my bubble of pessimism and stress, but still wasn't feeling inspired. So with a couple weeks left, I made a decision to actively change my paradigm by getting out there and not letting this time and opportunity go to waste. I began waking up at 4:30 a.m. before the rest of the family and exploring Manila while the sun was coming up, racing against the inevitable and unavoidable heat that would quickly impose itself on the city. This was practice time. This was focus time. This was time for me to get out there and act like the kind of producer that I'm aspiring to be. I shot everything I could. I tried different settings, I tried different angles, I kept my eye out for opportunities to see the city from the perspective that was just not possible, or at least easy, unless I was able to move at my own pace and go wherever I wanted to without considering the safety of little ones. And it worked. I began to feel inspired again. I began to enjoy eating and running around and meeting new people again. Taking control and acting with intention helped me focus my attention, which impacted my mood and perception of everything for the positive. And so, it's become a practice of mine since to shoot more often and to apply a new technique or use a new piece of equipment with every video I produce. It's not always easy to stay disciplined, but I do believe that nearly everything worth doing is worth doing well, and to do things well requires focus and grit.
And so with that being said, being back home now, I've taken inventory of the way that I have spent my time and mental energy over the last couple months, and I've had to evaluate whether or not the ways I'm spending my time and energy are of help or if they're hindrances. Was I starting my day well? Taking care of myself, getting enough exercise, consuming the right amount of nutrition and water? Was I consuming the wrong amount of maybe alcohol or unhealthy food? Or was I consuming the wrong sort of media? And was I ending my day well? So when I took an inventory of all this, I realized that there was a lot of areas that I just started needing to modify. And a lot of this stuff may seem very obvious to most people, but it's crazy how just making those slight little adjustments really has such a big impact. For example, starting my day, spending 5 to 10 minutes in meditation, maybe reading a book or watching a video that gets my head in the right space, and getting up maybe an hour before the rest of the family, or at least the kids do, in order to spend a few moments by myself and prepare for the day rather than allowing the day to be controlled by outside forces right from the get-go. Looking at my intake, I started to put on a little bit of weight since I got back from Asia. I was not eating the healthiest. I was eating on the go a lot. I was drinking a couple beers every night before bed. These are things that I just found needed to be at least cut down quite a bit. I certainly wasn't drinking enough water. I wasn't getting out of the house. I was spending most of my day in front of my computer, and I live about a mile from downtown Portland, so I started walking whenever I had a chance. And then at one point, I had my phone stolen, which actually turned out to be not such a terrible thing, because I had about 3 days there where I was exploring which kind of phone I wanted to have and waiting to see if my phone showed up. And so I had about 3 days with no phone. And that was a big eye-opener. Not being glued to a device all the time was very powerful. It's almost measurable how different I feel in a day if I'm watching current events and politics as opposed to a video about writing screenplays or time management. So paying attention to that input was really important. I find that staying off of social media, or at least scheduling my social media, it really helps you take control of the day and taking control of life, basically. And then finally was ending the day. So the days where I wake up feeling the best are the days where I leave my phone in another room. I shut it off an hour before I go to bed. I lay in bed and I read a book as opposed to watching something on YouTube or listening to a podcast. Just making these tweaks and modifications here and there have really elevated my mood, my motivation, everything else. And I went through a list of things earlier that were sort of distractions or excuses for why I wasn't putting this vlog out for a while. And I mentioned how all of them serve some sort of value or some sort of contribution to what I'm trying to do with my life right now. For example, finishing grad school. There was an intense 3 or 4 weeks there of putting the last pieces together so that I could graduate. Job hunting has been, at times it's been a bit discouraging, but at times it's also been really fun. I've met a lot of people. I've interacted with some really talented filmmakers. I've done some informational interviews, all the while staying busy with a few different projects I'm working on. So I'm definitely not bored, but I'm still looking for the thing that I want to consume most of my time during the day. The home remodels, right behind me. Yesterday, this wall was down to the studs and soundproof insulation, which it had been for about 8 months. This room that I'm recording in right now is going to be my studio. Just needed to get the sheetrock hung. The walls are going to be finished hopefully in the next week or so. I just need to start chipping away at that. So that is serving something. It takes time, it takes energy away from where I want to be focusing my energy, but at least it's not a waste of time. I took a couple trips out of town. I filmed a lot along the way, but most importantly, we left the kids with my parents and we got a chance to just relax. My wife and I drove from Detroit to Toronto, which is about a 4-hour drive. She slept most of the day. I listened to audiobooks and just relaxed. And most importantly, we slept a lot. We got to enjoy a beer and a couple meals without kids. I love the kids, but sometimes a break is really good. Spending time with other family members and friends, that's just food for the soul. So I would never want to stop doing that. And of course, taking care of kids. This is the most time consuming and headspace consuming part of my life, as most parents out there would understand, but it's also incredibly rewarding, and it makes all of the stuff that I do kind of worth doing. When I'm spending quality time with them, it makes me just feel better. And another trip I took, which I've often said is the most valuable thing I do for myself every year.
This trip is the most important thing I do every year.
An annual backpacking trip that I've been organizing for 11 years now. Every year we go to a different spot in the Pacific Northwest, most of the time somewhere along the Pacific Crest Trail. And this year we went to Jefferson Park, which is at the base of Jefferson Mountain. It was an incredible 6-mile hike in, and we set up camp and just chilled. And the value of this trip every year, not only spending time with great friends and being in the wilderness and being away from technology and all of that, is it just helps me to kind of reset and unplug. The fresh air, the disconnection from technology.
The thing that makes it so important is the disconnecting. And I don't just mean disconnecting from technology and work, but I also mean disconnecting in terms of having like a daily agenda, having to be somewhere at a certain time.
The difficult work that it takes to get into some of these spots sometimes, all of that typically helps me reset and come back with a new sense of rejuvenation. I feel motivated, I feel refreshed, I feel ready to go. And so I just wanted to put this episode out as kind of a reminder to myself to just keep doing the things that are of service to the process of developing, whether it's in filmmaking or whether it's any other sort of craft. I watched an interview one time on Robert Rodriguez, and he says that on set he typically has a station, if you will, for painting. And the reason why is because he says that he wants his actors and everybody else on set to be continuously working on creative things, on artistic things, whether it's directly related to filmmaking or not, because he believes that keeping that consistent flow of creativity going serves the process of creating a good film. I like that idea. And so I just wanted to use this episode to get a little bit more serious than I intend to get on most episodes of the show, and discuss something that has been holding me back a little bit, because I have started filming this episode a half a dozen times.
I did get better at filming while I have kids with me, and I learned a few lessons along the way with that. And one of them is don't film with the kids and when there's a lot of cars around. So one of the things I missed the most when we were out of the country was this place.
Okay, so I'm sitting in what is now my new office.
So we're at the Starbucks headquarters, and this place is unlike any Starbucks I've ever been to. There's like 10 of these. They're called Starbucks Reserves. Because the party we're going to is right on the waterfront where the fireworks are going to be. Do you like fireworks?
No.
No? Why don't you like fireworks?
Because it's so loud. Happy birthday, America.
And one of the things I told myself right from the beginning is use this as a way to just continue to create. Don't stop creating. Not every episode's going to be good. Not every episode's going to get a lot of likes or watches or anything else, but at least keep it going. So, with that being said, if anybody has anything to add to this discussion, please leave them in the comments below, and I'll start working on the next episode right away. Thanks for watching.
All right, super excited right now because me and my uncle, Ricky.
Yeah, it's a weird life.
We're gonna shoot a podcast.